Hello, every pony. My name is SkyShadow. I am a Royal Archivist in service to the princesses, and I would like to welcome you to a very special edition of Historical Equestria. Historical Equestria is a monthly seminar about the various histories and myths of Equestria and beyond, hosted by the Canterlot Archives. However, today's seminar is being conducted under special consideration, given the time of year. As such, we would like to welcome you to this discussion about the traditional Running of the Leaves Marathon. I'll be using my magic to show sketches and other information throughout the seminar, so please hold any questions you might have until after its completion. Now then, shall we begin? The Running of the Leaves is a traditional marathon hosted in several towns and cities across Equestria as a preliminary event to the end of autumn. Ponies come together on an annual basis and run through the forest, their thundering hoofsteps shaking the leaves from the trees in preparation for winter. As some of you may know, trees in Equestria are possessed of an ambient magic that tends to make them unusually resilient. They can even withstand being carved into functioning structures and still live and grow as if nothing were the matter. This is why many of the trees across Equestria are, shall we say, stubborn about dropping their leaves, and so they sometimes need a little extra help. Now, it's true that not all the trees in Equestria do this. And the further one gets from our borders, the more this ambient magic fades, and the trees and forests begin behaving in what is considered to be the normal fashion. That is because, long ago in Equestria, there was a great discharge of magic, causing a terrible cataclysm, imbuing its power into the very earth itself. Since that time, that magic has slowly permeated every fiber of the world, with Equestria at its epicenter. It exists in varying quantities between living creatures, plants, the atmosphere, and of course, the earth. We know this because equestrian scholars have found a way to measure the wavelength of this ambient magic, a wavelength they call the aether. The residual energies of the cataclysm were absorbed into the land over many centuries, and the leaves clinging to the trees are considered to be one of its many side effects. But it did not begin to manifest itself until the Age of Strife, when the 3 pony tribes of Equestria had recovered from the cataclysm and rebuilt themselves into stable societies. The 3 tribes were on the cusp of war, with the Earth Pony farm suffering attacks from Pegasus raiders. While trying to rebuild their farmlands, they began to notice that the leaves simply weren't falling from the trees as they should have been. They didn't think much about this at first, but when the winter snows finally melted, the leaves were still there. Furthermore, the trees wouldn't grow new leaves or bear fruit so long as the old ones remained. The Earth Ponies struggled to adapt to this new development, but the added labor to the harvest was intensive and detracted from time vital to the growing season. This impacted the overall harvest more and more each year as the number of trees and forests affected steadily increased. Concerned this growing affliction could have negative effects on their food source, the Earth Ponies begrudgingly asked the unicorns to investigate the cause. Once the ambient magic was identified, it was deemed harmless, and so the Earth Ponies added the removal of the autumn leaves as a community chore out of necessity, whereas the unicorns, having been the ones conducting the study, took a more whimsical approach to the unusual change. As they had less to do with the harvest, they would allow the leaves to linger until late in the season, and with the use of magic, the time needed to bring down the leaves was drastically reduced. Eventually, the Earth Pony lands were taken as protectorates under unicorn rule. As such, it fell to the nobles managing the lands to oversee the harvest and its various needs, including the autumn leaves. Of course, not all were diligent in this duty, making it yet another contributing factor to the eventual 3-way war. And while the autumn leaves have no bearing on that event, there is note of them still made in some of the old war journals. Many nobles were derelict in their duties towards the Earth Ponies, and many forests were left unattended for years at a time. Once the war began, no pony was about to concern themselves with such a thing, but the Earth Ponies found a way to use the unicorns' own disregard to their advantage. The Earth Ponies often favored guerrilla tactics, ambushing unicorns and Pegasi forces in small groups, typically in unattended forests. Then, when fleeing from the enemy, their galloping would cause the leaves to tumble down in their wake and obscure their path from their pursuers. Inevitably, the warring between the pony tribes brought about the long winter, and none of the trees were of concern to any pony. But then came the founding of Equestria, and what was once a purely earth pony chore was now the obligation of every pony. The tribes were far more cooperative with one another than in the past, with unicorns and earth ponies helping in equal measure. Even the Pegasi were encouraged to contribute and came up with a number of creative ways to assist, and while a few of them were perhaps a little too violent for everyday use, such as the cyclone, they eventually found their own way of helping with the autumn leaves by clearing away what remained with controlled gusts of wind. It wouldn't be until after the Age of Chaos that the removal of the autumn leaves would take a more competitive turn. With pony populations steadily growing in number, the importance of the harvest began to put pressure on those overseeing it, and while they now had more ponies helping than ever before, the removal of the autumn leaves still remained a tedious and time-consuming task. As many of you know, Equestria's seasons are strictly managed and have to be completed in a certain amount of time to allow for the next season's preparations to begin. So, the various leaders of the then acting High Pony Council suggested a competition of sorts, with the approval of the princesses. They encouraged the many pony settlements of Equestria to find faster means of pulling down the leaves. Unicorns experimented with magic, earth ponies went out in force, and Pegasi continued to literally rain on the parade. This was when the earth pony's old retreat tactic began to make a reappearance, this time as a friendly race. In fact, the earth pony races quickly became the most popular method of removing the leaves, with more and more ponies joining in the fun. Eventually, the races became the dominant method used and was adopted by the High Pony Council as the holiday marathon running of the leaves. Now, while the running remains the preferred method of dropping the leaves, it isn't necessarily used in every town. In places like Canterlot, where there's a largely unicorn population, removal by magic burst is still the preferred method. It varies from region to region, but most towns in Equestria at least honor the old tradition by having some manner of hoof race. The running of the leaves is an important fall event that marks the end of the harvest, and is celebrated with a great feast from the bounties that we have been blessed with. It's also the precursor to yet another autumn festival that began only in the last millennia. And while it's been greeted with a mixture of fear and excitement, Nightmare Night is considered to be one of Equestrians' favorite holidays, even for Princess Luna. That concludes our seminar for today. Please feel free to ask any questions you might have. Once again, I'm the Royal Archivist SkyShadow, and this is Historical Equestria. Thank you very much for participating. Hey yo, Everpony! This is your Overmare, back from a very enjoyable ROTLcon. The video you just watched was made especially for the convention, and is taking place of our usual vid for the month. The panel, I think, turned out very well, and a special nod to those who both attended and were subscribers to the series. Thanks for coming, guys. The overall convention was definitely one of the more fun ones I've attended in a long while, and while the Cabaret Otaku turnout wasn't as good as I would have liked, I still think the show itself went very well. By the way, how many of you noticed me cosplaying at the con? I was Derpy on day 1, complete with Nightmare Night costume, and on day 2, I was finally able to unveil my Princess Luna cosplay, which now I have to take in since I've lost weight. Still, I do adore the dress. It's gorgeous! I also got to participate in a number of panels other than my own. I attended Ask a Pony and the Breaking Pie panels as Derpy. And yes, I do play Derpy Hooves on Breaking Pie. Go and check out their show. I'll provide the link in the description. And on day 2, aside from the Cabaret Otaku show, which should be going up on video for the con, I also attended Lachlan O'Neill's voice acting panel. Special thanks to her. Hopefully I wasn't a terrible nuisance. Right now, however, our production studio, E4W, is currently looking for voiceover auditions. That's right, folks. Now's your chance to become an amateur VA in the fandom.
We're opening auditions for our secondary channel and our Fire Emblem radio play. Follow a link to our Tumblr in the description below and you'll find the details on how to audition. And if you're interested in seeing episode 1, follow this link right here to do just that.
And what's this? E4W finally has a website, you say? That's right, folks. Follow the link to our new site on FreeWebs. Sorry the design isn't that great, but hey, it's free. What you gonna do? It's still in the production stages, but I've already built a page for updates and Historical Equestria. I'll eventually get around to upgrading the homepage with more info and something for our voting polls as well. With any luck, this will make things a lot easier for those of you looking to ask questions of the Overmare and whatnot. Next month, it's back to business as usual with the second episode in the Zebrika series. Thanks again, and I hope you all enjoyed the Con Special.